The exploration ship Horizon's Edge came out of faster-than-light travel above a planet that should not exist. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge. His hands gripped the command console as he looked at the view screen. The screen filled with green. So much green. "Scan results coming in now, Captain," Lieutenant Maya Collins said from her station. "This is a Class M planet. It has oxygen and nitrogen in the air. Gravity is almost the same as Earth. But, sir, the plant readings are crazy. I have never seen this much plant life anywhere." Daniel studied the green continents on the screen below. Forests covered almost all the land. The treetops were so thick that their scans could barely see the ground. After 3 months of looking at dead rocks and frozen planets, finding a living world should make them happy. Instead, something about this planet made Daniel feel worried. "Launch the probes," he ordered. "I want to know about the air, radiation levels, and everything else before we go down there." Lieutenant Kyle Morrison worked at the science console. "Probes launched, Captain. We should have data in 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes felt long. The crew had learned to trust their captain over the past 5 years of traveling through space. If Hayes felt worried, there was usually a good reason. "Captain, this is strange," Kyle said. His young face looked confused. "The probes are picking up organized signals across the entire forest. It looks like brain activity, but on a planet-wide scale." "What do you mean?" Daniel asked. "The forest are thinking, sir." Maya looked up from her station. Her brown eyes were wide. "Captain, 3 of our probes just stopped working. No warnings, no debris. They just stopped sending signals. Pull back the other probes. Stay in high orbit." Daniel turned on the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We have a possible hostile situation. Go to battle stations, but do not fire any weapons unless I give direct orders." The ship came alive around them as the crew of 68 people moved to their positions. The Horizon's Edge was mainly a science ship, but humans had learned to be prepared when going into the unknown. They had enough weapons to destroy a small city if they needed to. "Captain, we are getting a transmission," Maya said. Her voice was tight. "It is coming from the planet's surface. Audio only, but it is in English." The bridge became silent. They were 43 light-years from Earth. No human colonies were in this area. "English should be impossible here." "Play it," Daniel said. A voice came from the speakers. It was neither male nor female. It sounded like many voices speaking together perfectly. "Human ship, you have entered the domain of the Verdant Collective. Your machines have been disabled. You will send people to the surface to explain why you are here. Any act of violence will have permanent results." Kyle turned pale. "Captain, how do they know our language?" "They took our probes," Daniel said. His face was serious. "And they learned everything on them." He took a deep breath. "Prepare the landing party. Full diplomatic rules. Maya, Kyle, you come with me." "Sir, we have no idea what is down there," Maya said, "which is why we need our best scientist and communications officer on the ground." Daniel tried to smile. "Besides, if they wanted us dead, they could have done it already. Something that can work together on a planet-wide scale could have destroyed us the moment we arrived." 2 hours later, the landing shuttle went down through clouds that seemed to open up for them. As they came through the treetops, Daniel understood why the probes could not map the surface. The trees were not just huge. They were connected by thick vines and roots that formed a living structure going down for miles. The forest did not have a floor. It had layers and layers of living material. The shuttle landed in a clearing that Daniel knew had been made just for them. The moment he stepped onto the moss-covered ground, he felt it. A presence. Something huge and old was watching them with countless invisible eyes. "Welcome, humans." The voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere. "We have studied your probe memories. We have seen your wars, your destruction, your endless need for more. But we have also seen your ability to wonder, your drive to understand, your love for your families." The forest around them seemed to breathe. Branches moved in patterns that looked like they were trying to talk. "We are the Verdant Collective. We were here when your species first looked up at the stars. We will be here long after you have turned to dust. But maybe, if you prove worthy, we will let you walk among us and learn what it means to truly live in balance." Kyle's scanner made noise. "Captain, I am reading huge energy buildups in the root systems. It is like the entire forest is getting ready to do something." "Stand down, Lieutenant," Daniel said quietly. He stepped forward and removed his helmet to show trust. "I am Captain Daniel Hayes of the Human Confederation. We come looking for knowledge and peaceful contact with new life. We mean no harm to you or your world. We shall see, the collective replied. We shall test the truth of your words. The forest awakens, Captain Hayes. And when it awakens, it judges. 3 of your people fell to us when we stopped your machines. They remain alive, held in our embrace. Whether they return to you whole depends entirely on what you prove yourselves to be in the trials ahead. Daniel felt cold. 3 crew members on those probes? He thought the probes had no people on them. But now he understood. The collective had not just read the probe data. They had taken the maintenance crew who were doing repairs outside when the probes were called back. What trials? He demanded. Fear and anger filled his voice. The forest provides, Captain, but it also demands. You will understand soon enough. The trees around them began to move. The vines came up from the ground fast. They wrapped around Daniel's waist before he could react. Maya cried out as vines grabbed her too. Before Daniel could reach for his gun, the collective's voice boomed through the clearing. Violence is the first failure, it said. You will not be harmed unless you choose harm. The trial begins. The world turned sideways. Daniel felt himself lifted and carried through the treetops at incredible speed. Kyle and Maya were caught too. All 3 humans were being moved deeper into the forest by living ropes of wood and vine. Within moments, the shuttle disappeared behind layers of green. They traveled for what felt like hours, though Daniel's watch said only 12 minutes had passed. The forest around them grew darker and older. The trees here were so huge that their trunks could hold entire buildings. Glowing mushrooms gave off blue and green light, making everything look strange and beautiful. Finally, they were put down in a grove where the air itself seemed to hum with power. At the center stood 3 cocoons made of woven bark and leaves. Each one held a human shape that could be seen through clear sections. Lieutenant Peter Grant, Daniel said, recognizing the chief engineer. The other 2 were Christina Moore, a plant scientist, and young Jake Phillips, a maintenance worker who was barely 22 years old. All 3 looked like they were sleeping but breathing. They sleep in the embrace of the collective, the voice explained. They are not harmed, but they will not wake until you have proven yourselves. The first trial is understanding. Your species builds machines to do what you cannot do. You create dead things to serve you. We find this disturbing. We want to understand why you trust metal over living things, circuits over roots. Kyle stepped forward. His scientific curiosity was stronger than his fear. The collective is not individual, right? You are a network. What you call dead things we call tools. They let us do more than our biology allows. Tools can be used to create or destroy, the collective said. Your probe memories show both. Machines that heal and machines that kill. How do we know which you bring to our world? Daniel understood what the trial was really about. You want to see how we think, how we solve problems. You are testing whether we will destroy or create when we face something unknown. Correct, Captain Hayes. Before you lies the first challenge. The ground in front of them split open. It showed a gap filled with a thick liquid that gave off bad-smelling smoke. Across the gap, maybe 50 feet away, was a platform where tools and equipment from their shuttle had been placed. Daniel saw building units, medical supplies, and communication equipment. Your friends need medicine, the collective said. Daniel noticed for the first time that Christina was shaking in her cocoon. Her face looked red with fever. The cure lies across the divide. You have access to your tools, but the forest will not help you. Show us what human cleverness can do. Maya started looking at the situation right away. The liquid is acidic based on the smell. We cannot swing across. There are no anchor points. We cannot jump it. We could use our plasma cutters to cut down one of these trees, Kyle suggested, then stopped. But that would be destroying part of the collective. That might be exactly what they are testing us not to do. Daniel nodded. His crew was thinking, not just reacting. The tools over there. Tell me what we could build if we had them. The builder could make bridge parts, Maya said. Medical supplies for Christina. The communication unit could call the shuttle for pickup. But I doubt they would let us leave without finishing this trial. So we need to get across without destroying the forest, and without using machines to cross the gap, Daniel said. He walked to the edge of the gap and studied it carefully. The walls were straight but not smooth. Root Sisti. Dawn in the forest was different from anything on Earth. The glowing mushrooms dimmed slowly. They were replaced by beams of golden sunlight that came through the treetops in controlled streams. Daniel realized the collective was managing the light itself, creating a perfect morning for the trial ahead. Christina Moore woke first. She gasped as her cocoon unwove itself and placed her gently on the moss. Maya was at her side right away with her scanner in hand. Easy, easy, Maya said in a calm voice. You've been out for about 18 hours. How do you feel? Like I was eaten and put back together, Christina said. Her voice was rough. Her eyes got wide as she remembered what happened. The probe, the maintenance bay, something grabbed us and pulled us down and... She looked around fast. Peter, Jake? Still sleeping, Daniel said, helping her sit up. We are working on getting everyone out. The collective is testing us. 3 trials. We passed 1. Christina took this in like a scientist who had spent years studying alien life. What kind of tests? The kind that decide if we live or die, Kyle said bluntly. And whether humanity gets access to whatever knowledge this forest is protecting. Before Christina could reply, the collective's voice filled the grove. The second trial begins. This challenge is about sacrifice and choice. All species claim to value their members, but actions show truth. We will see what truth lies in human hearts. The other 2 cocoons lifted into the air. They floated gently toward different parts of the forest. Peter Grant drifted to the left, toward a path marked by white flowers on vines. Jake Phillips moved to the right, where red flowers marked his path. Each path leads to danger, the collective explained. One path has a swarm of creatures we cannot fully control, insects that eat flesh fast. The other has a pool of our strongest defense chemical, a poison that dissolves living matter. Both your friends will be placed in these dangers at the same time. You have resources and tools. You may save one, but trying to save both will cause failure of this trial and death for all. That is cruel, Maya said angrily. You are asking us to choose who lives? We are asking you to show what you value. Do you try the impossible and lose everything? Do you choose the youngest? The most useful? The one you have known longest? Many species fail this trial not through wrong choice, but through being unable to choose at all. Daniel felt sick. The military had trained him for emergency medical situations, but this was different. This was deliberate cruelty dressed up as wisdom. There has to be another way, Christina said. She was already studying the paths. Captain, let me go left. I know insect behavior. I might be able to make something that keeps them away using local plants. And I can study the poison chemistry. Maybe make something to stop it, Kyle added. We could split up? No, the collective said. You must stay here together. You may send machine help down each path, but your bodies stay in this grove. Those are the rules. Choose. Daniel's mind raced. There had to be a trick, a way around this. The first trial had been about trust and cooperation. This one was about sacrifice and choice. What was the collective actually testing? How long do we have? He asked. 20 minutes. After that, both dangers activate. Captain, we need to decide, Maya urged. If we send the medical drones left and the chemical builder right. No, Daniel interrupted. A wild idea was forming. We are thinking about this wrong. The collective said we could save one if we try, but it also said trying to save both would cause failure. Not death necessarily. Failure of the trial? Kyle understood first. You think failing the trial is the real answer? The first trial tested whether we would trust the forest. This one is testing whether we would sacrifice ourselves for our crew. Daniel turned to talk to the collective directly. You want to see what we value? Fine, here it is. We value both these lives. We are not choosing. Send us all into the dangers. Put me in the acid pool and the rest of my crew in the insect swarm. If our people die, we die with them. That is the human answer. Silence. Even the constant sound of leaves stopped. Interesting, the collective finally said. You would fail the trial on purpose? I would refuse to play a rigged game, Daniel corrected. You said many species fail by being unable to choose. Maybe that is because the right choice is not to choose at all. If humanity can only survive by leaving our own behind, then maybe we do not deserve what you are protecting. More silence. Daniel could feel his crew's worry. He knew they were wondering if he had just killed them all through stubborn pride. Then, amazingly, both cocoons returned to the grove and gently placed Peter and Jake on the ground. Both men stirred, waking naturally as their prisons dissolved. No species has ever chosen this path, the collective said. For the first time, Daniel heard something like surprise in its voice. Most try to save both and fail through bad planning. Some choose and live with guilt. A few refuse to choose and simply wait for death. But none have demanded to join their friends in death. This is either deep wisdom or deep foolishness. It is humanity, Maya said quietly, for better or worse. The second trial is complete, the collective announced. But understand this. We did not lie. If you had sent help down either path, the dangers were real. Your crew members would have faced real danger. We do not test with tricks. But you brought them back, Christina pointed out. So what was the real test? Whether you would sacrifice victory for principle, whether you valued the lives before you more than the rewards promised later, whether you understood that some choices are false choices, designed to show character rather than solve problems. The collective's voice became thoughtful. Your probe memories showed us a species that often sacrifices the few for the many. We needed to see if any humans existed who would refuse that math. Peter Grant, now awake and very confused, looked around at his crew. Someone want to explain what the hell is going on? Later, Daniel promised. Right now, we have one more trial to pass. Rest while you can. Something tells me the third challenge will be the hardest yet. As his crew settled in, checking on each other and sharing food, Daniel noticed something he had not seen before. The trees around their grove had changed. New growth had appeared overnight. Flowers in colors that almost perfectly matched the badge patches on their uniforms, blue and gold and silver. The forest was learning about them. The question was whether it would like what it learned. Captain, Kyle whispered, coming to stand beside him, I have been studying the root structures. The collective is not just a planet-wide network. It is ancient. Some of these trees are tens of thousands of years old, and they are all connected to something deeper. There is a huge structure underground like a brain the size of a city. The secrets it is guarding, Daniel said quietly, they are not just knowledge. They are something physical, something important enough to test everyone who comes here. What do you think it is? Daniel watched the forest sway in patterns that looked almost like breathing. I think we are about to find out, and I think the third trial will decide if humanity is ready to know. The night passed slowly. The crew took turns keeping watch, though none of them truly believed they could defend against the forest if it decided to attack. But the collective seemed content to let them rest. In the morning, Christina examined the cocoons that had held her and the others. Fascinating, she said, running her scanner over the material. The structure is incredibly complex. It is not just containment. It was monitoring our vital signs, adjusting temperature and humidity, even filtering air. It was keeping us alive with precision. So they really could have killed us at any time, Jake said. The young maintenance worker looked shaken by everything that had happened. But they chose not to, Peter pointed out. That has to mean something. It means they are curious about us, Kyle said. Just like we are curious about them. This whole thing is a mutual exploration. They want to understand humanity as much as we want to understand them. Then why the trials? Maya asked. Why not just talk to us? Because talk is cheap, Daniel said. He had been thinking about this all night. Anyone can claim to be peaceful, to value life, to respect others. But actions show the truth. They needed to see how we would act under pressure, when our survival was threatened, when hard choices had to be made. And we passed 2 trials, Christina said. What do you think the third one will be? Before anyone could answer, the ground began to shake. It was not violent, but steady and rhythmic, like a huge heartbeat from deep below. The third trial approaches, the collective said. Prepare yourselves. What comes next will test not your cleverness or your morals, but your understanding of existence itself. Many who reach this stage turn back in fear. Some go forward and are destroyed by what they learn. A rare few emerge changed, ready to carry the weight of truth. The moss-covered ground in the center of the grove began to split. It formed a perfect circle, revealing stairs carved from living wood going down into darkness. Glowing vines lined the passage, giving off light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. All of you will go down together, the collective said. What you find in the deep chambers will challenge everything you think you know about life, consciousness, and purpose. Are you ready? The 6 humans looked at each other. They had come this far together. They had faced tests of trust and sacrifice. How many? Daniel asked. His voice was rough. How many of us would you need? 1 would be enough to create the filter. But the transformation is painful and cannot be reversed. We have watched species offer their criminals, their elderly, their sick. Always there is force, always there is justification. We will not accept such sacrifice. The one who joins us must choose freely, knowing all, understanding all, and doing so not from despair but from genuine willingness to become something more than they were. Peter Grant laughed bitterly. So the real trial is finding someone noble enough to commit suicide to save a forest they just met? Not suicide, the collective corrected. Transformation. You would not die. You would expand. Every question you ever had about the universe would be answerable, for we have observed this galaxy for 10 million years, through countless individuals who have joined us. Every dream you ever had of mattering, of making a difference, would be fulfilled. You would help sustain a consciousness that has uplifted worlds and preserved wonders. But yes, the person you are would be dissolved into something greater. Daniel looked at his crew. Jake Phillips was only 22. His whole life was ahead of him. Peter Grant had a wife and 2 children back on the colony world. Maya Collins was engaged to be married. Kyle Morrison had just submitted his big research paper before this mission. Christina Moore had talked about wanting to start a family someday, and Daniel Hayes was 53, divorced, no children, no close family. He had lived for his work, for exploration, for the mission. In many ways, his crew was the closest thing he had to a family. The choice seemed clear. "Captain, no," Maya said, reading his face. "You are not seriously thinking about—" "Someone has to," Daniel interrupted. "And I am the logical choice. You are all younger. You have people waiting for you back home. I do not." "That is not how we make this decision," Christina objected. "We draw straws, we volunteer. We do not just let you kill yourself because you think your life has less value." "My life does not have less value," Daniel said quietly. "But I have lived more of mine than any of you. And honestly, the idea of becoming part of something this huge, this ancient, this important, there are worse fates." Kyle stepped forward. "Captain, I should go. I am a scientist who studies alien life. Understanding alien consciousness has been my life's work. This would be the completion of everything I have studied." "I am unmarried with no dependents," Christina added. "And as a botanist, joining a plant-based intelligence makes a certain poetic sense." One by one, they all volunteered. Even young Jake, terrified but determined, insisted he had as much right to choose as anyone. The first tree watched through its patterns of light. Daniel thought he saw something like sadness in the display. "This is what those other species lacked," the collective said. Not one volunteer, but 6. Not resentment at the choice, but genuine struggle over who has the right to sacrifice. "You show us the truth of human bonds. So what happens now?" Daniel asked. "You pick one of us? We fight over who gets to dissolve themselves? Now we offer you the truth behind the truth," the first tree said. The final revelation. "Are you prepared?" The 6 humans looked at each other. They had come this far. "Tell us," Daniel said. The patterns reorganized into something that looked almost like a smile. "There is no poison," the collective said. There was no meteor. "We are not dying," the cavern erupted in shocked voices. Daniel felt as if the ground had moved beneath him, though nothing physical had changed. "You lied?" Maya demanded. "This whole thing was a lie." "Not a lie," the first tree corrected. "A test within a test. The trials of trust, choice, and sacrifice were real. But the ultimate trial was this. Would you value life, even alien life, enough to give up your own existence? Would you argue over who gets to sacrifice? Would you show genuine willingness to transform for the sake of another consciousness? Or would you hesitate, doubt, find reasons why it should be someone else?" Peter Grant looked like he wanted to punch a tree. Consequences be damned. So this was all manipulation? Emotional torture to see if we would break? "It was revelation," the collective responded. "Yours and ours. We have tested 147 species. Most failed the early trials through violence, greed, or cowardice. The few who reached this chamber responded in predictable ways. Some refused outright. Some argued for hours about who should go, showing social hierarchies and prejudices. Some tried to force others to volunteer. One species drew weapons on each other. The patterns shifted, showing images of various aliens. Some looked humanoid, others were completely strange. All were in this same chamber in their final moments of failure. You are the first to reach this point and have all members volunteer without hesitation, force, or calculation. You argued only over who had the greatest right to sacrifice, not who could be most easily spared. This tells us everything we needed to know about your species." "And what is that?" Daniel asked. Anger and relief warred in his voice. "That humanity may be ready for what we truly offer." The massive trunk of the first tree split open, revealing a chamber within. Inside floated a crystal structure of impossible shape. It glowed with inner light that seemed to bend reality around it. "This is the gift," the collective said with reverence. "The reason we test all who come here. It is a repository of knowledge gathered over 10 million years. It contains the location of every livable world within 1,000 light years. It holds solutions to diseases, blueprints for technologies, methods of communication across any divide. It contains the distilled wisdom of 42 extinct civilizations whose final members joined us to preserve their cultures. It is everything any species could want to accelerate their evolution by 10,000 years. Christina stepped closer. Her scientific curiosity was stronger than her anger. Why offer this to anyone? Why not keep it hidden? Because knowledge that is not shared is knowledge that dies. We have preserved these wonders, but preservation is not purpose. These gifts must be used, must be built upon, must be carried forward by species capable of wielding them responsibly. The pattern swirled in what might have been regret, but we have seen what happens when species unready for such power obtain it. 3 times we have given the gift to those who passed the surface trials but failed the deeper ones. All 3 times those species used the knowledge to dominate others, to wage wars of expansion, to accelerate their own progress at the cost of countless lives. So you created a test that filters for empathy, Kyle breathed, for genuine caring for others. You are not looking for the smartest or strongest species. You are looking for the most compassionate. Precisely. A species willing to sacrifice for strangers, to argue over who has the right to give rather than take, to value consciousness beyond their own biological form. Such a species might use this gift to uplift others rather than dominate them. Daniel felt the weight of what was being offered, and if we take it, what is the obligation? Only this: you must test others as you were tested. Should they come to your world seeking wisdom, you must become guardians as we have been guardians. The knowledge must spread, but only to those worthy of its burden. That is asking us to judge other species, Maya objected, to play God with their futures. It is asking you to be responsible, the first tree corrected. As you were responsible in choosing trust over force, principle over convenience, and mutual sacrifice over individual preservation. The universe is filled with intelligence, but intelligence without wisdom is merely dangerous. You have shown wisdom today. Jake Phillips, who had been quiet throughout the revelation, spoke up. So what happens to us now? Do we just take this crystal and leave? Go home and start building wonders? That is one path, the collective agreed. But we offer another. The patterns shifted once more, showing a human figure not dissolving into the roots but standing among them, connected yet separate. The merger we described was not entirely fabrication. It is possible. Some who passed our tests have chosen to join us, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They walked in the forest, spoke with us, learned what it meant to be part of something vast and ancient, and decided their individual existence would be enriched by joining the collective consciousness. You are offering that to us? Christina asked. Even though you do not need it? We offer it because some souls are meant for expansion. The choice is yours individually. Take the gift and return home to change your civilization's destiny. Or stay here, join us, and experience existence from a perspective few biological beings ever achieve. Or do both. Some take the gift home while others remain to ensure the tradition continues. Daniel looked at his crew, seeing the same struggle reflected in each face. The opportunity before them was staggering. Take the crystal and humanity would leap forward centuries, join the collective and gain immortality of a sort, merged with an intelligence that had witnessed ages. Walk away and preserve their individual lives, but always wonder what they had refused. I need time to think, Maya said. We all do. This is too big a decision to make right now. You have time, the first tree assured them. Stay in the forest. Learn from us. Speak with those who joined the collective in ages past. They retain their ability to communicate, to share their experiences. As Maya, Peter, and Jake prepared to return to the shuttle with the crystal repository, they said their goodbyes to Kyle and Christina. There were tears, hugs, promises to meet again if possible. Daniel stood between both groups, the bridge between worlds. Tell them I died a hero, he joked to Maya. Sounds better than turned into a tree. I will tell them you found what you were looking for, she replied, hugging him fiercely, and that you saved us all. The trip back to the ship was bittersweet. Maya held the crystal carefully, knowing it contained the future of humanity. Peter was quiet, thinking about his family. Jake kept looking back at the forest, perhaps wondering if he had made the right choice. On the horizon's edge, the crew was shocked to see only 3 return. Maya explained everything. The trials, the tests, the gift, and the choices made. Some crew members understood. Others thought their friends had been brainwashed or fooled by an alien intelligence. But when they examined the crystal and saw the knowledge it contained, doubt turned to wonder. The gift was real, the sacrifice was real, and humanity had been judged worthy. The ship began its journey home, leaving behind a forest world that had tested them and found them adequate. In the cargo bay, the crystal pulsed with soft light, containing secrets that would change everything. Back on the forest planet, Kyle Morrison stood in a small grove, preparing for his temporary merger. The collective had explained the process to him. He would remain himself but gain access to the vast consciousness of the forest. He could withdraw at any time, return to his human form, and leave when he was ready. "Are you afraid?" Christina asked. She had already begun her own merger process. Thin roots had begun to grow from her feet, connecting her to the network. She said it did not hurt but felt strange, like her thoughts were expanding into spaces they had never been before. Terrified, Kyle admitted, but also excited. This is what I have always wanted. To truly understand alien consciousness, to see the universe through completely different eyes. Not eyes, Christina corrected with a smile. Through roots and leaves and bark. Through the slow, patient observation of ages. Kyle laughed. You are already starting to talk like them. Like us, she corrected. I am already part of the collective now. I can feel it. Billions of minds, all connected, all sharing. It is beautiful, Kyle. You will see. The collective's voice spoke around them, gentle and welcoming. Kyle Morrison, you are welcome to join us temporarily. We will show you wonders that few biological beings ever witness. And when you are ready to leave, we will release you unchanged in body, but forever changed in mind. Kyle took a deep breath and stepped forward. He felt roots rise from the ground, gentle but firm, wrapping around his legs. There was no pain, only a strange tingling sensation. Then his consciousness began to expand. At first it was overwhelming. He could suddenly feel thousands of trees, their roots, their leaves, their connection to soil and sun and rain. He could sense the insects crawling on bark, the birds nesting in branches, the small mammals moving through the undergrowth. The forest was not just alive. It was aware of every living thing within it. Then his perception expanded further. He began to access memories, not just his own, but those of the collective. He saw the forest when it was young, just a few hundred trees. He saw the meteor that brought the first intelligent cells, the ones that started the network. He watched as the forest grew, spread, covered the planet over millions of years. He saw other species come and go. Some passed the tests, most did not. He watched their failures, their violence, their inability to see beyond their own immediate needs. And he understood why the tests were necessary. The knowledge was not just facts and figures. It was wisdom earned through 10 million years of observation. It was understanding of how civilizations rose and fell, how species evolved or went extinct, how the universe itself moved through great cycles of creation and destruction. Incredible, Kyle whispered, though he was not sure if he spoke with his mouth or just thought the words into the network. This is just the beginning, the collective responded. Stay with us. Learn from us, and when you return to your people, you will carry wisdom that no book or database could contain. You will understand what it means to think beyond the self. Meanwhile, Christina's transformation was progressing faster. She had chosen full merger, and her human body was slowly being absorbed into the root structure. But she felt no fear, no regret. Her consciousness was expanding at an incredible rate, and with it came a sense of peace she had never known as a solitary human. She could feel Daniel in the forest, too, even though he had returned to the ship. The collective had placed a small seed in his pocket before he left, a living connection to the network. When he returned, that seed would help him merge smoothly, would ease his transition from isolated consciousness to shared existence. Weeks turned into months. On Earth, the Horizon's Edge arrived home to great celebration. Maya presented the gift to the Human Confederation Council. The knowledge was carefully studied, verified, and slowly released to humanity. Medical researchers found cures for diseases that had plagued humans for centuries. Engineers developed new energy systems that made fossil fuels obsolete. Diplomats learned techniques for peaceful negotiation that transformed how humans dealt with other species. Humanity began to change. The knowledge from the gift pushed them forward. But the story of the trials changed them even more. The idea that a species could be judged not by their technology or their power, but by their capacity for compassion and sacrifice, resonated deeply. Schools taught about the forest trials. Children grew up learning that true strength came from caring for others, not from dominating them. Maya Collins became famous, though she did not want the attention. She spoke at conferences, wrote papers, explained the trials to anyone who would listen, but she always ended with the same message. We passed because we were willing to give up everything for each other. That is what made us worthy. Not our technology, not our intelligence, but our humanity in the truest sense of the word. Peter Grant returned to his family. His children were older now. They barely remembered him. But he worked to rebuild those relationships, knowing that the knowledge he had helped bring home would give them a better future. Jake Phillips went back to his job as a maintenance worker, but he was never the same. He had seen the universe from a different perspective, had touched consciousness beyond human understanding. He became quiet, thoughtful, spending his free time writing about his experiences. On the forest planet, Kyle Morrison lived within the collective consciousness for 15 years. He learned more in that time than most scientists learned in a lifetime. He studied how the forest managed its ecosystem, how it communicated with every living thing on the planet, how it had preserved the knowledge of extinct civilizations. But he also learned the limits of merged consciousness. The collective thought slowly, deliberately, with the patience of trees that lived for thousands of years. It made decisions over decades that humans would make in minutes. It valued stability over change, preservation over innovation. Kyle realized that humanity needed both perspectives, the quick, innovative, sometimes chaotic human way of thinking, and the patient, wise, long-term perspective of the collective. He could be a bridge between them. When he finally asked to be released from the merger, the collective did not hesitate. The roots unwrapped from his body. His consciousness contracted back into his single human mind. It felt strange at first, claustrophobic, like going from a vast cathedral into a small closet. But it was his closet, his mind, his individual existence. "Thank you," he said to the forest around him, "for everything you have shown me." "Thank you, Kyle Morrison," the collective replied, "for choosing to understand us. When you return to your people, tell them what you have learned, help them use the gift wisely, and remind them that the trials are not just for those who come to our world. Every day, every species faces trials of trust, sacrifice, and wisdom. How they respond determines their future." Kyle left the forest and traveled back to human space. He wrote books about his experience, taught courses on alien consciousness, became a voice for patient, long-term thinking in a human culture that often valued speed and immediate results. Christina remained with the collective, her human body long since absorbed into the root network, but her consciousness thrived. She helped manage the forest ecosystem, guided new growth, participated in the great slow conversations that the collective held with itself. She was no longer just Christina Moore. She was Christina and the forest, a hybrid consciousness that retained her human memories and personality, but thought with the wisdom of ages. She did not regret her choice. How could she? She had gained immortality, wisdom, and purpose beyond anything her limited human existence could have provided. And Daniel Hayes, true to his word, returned to the forest world 5 years after taking the gift home. He had made sure the knowledge reached humanity, had testified before councils and committees, had done his duty as a captain one final time. Now it was time for his final transformation. He walked into the deep forest with the small seed that had been given to him years ago. It had remained dormant in his pocket all this time, waiting for him to be ready. 20 years after the horizon's edge first encountered the forest world, humanity had transformed. The gift had given them knowledge that pushed their civilization forward by centuries. Diseases that once killed millions were now curable. Energy was clean and abundant. Ships could travel faster through space using new propulsion systems. Communication with other alien species was easier with the diplomatic frameworks learned from extinct civilizations. But the greatest change was not technological. It was philosophical. Humans had learned from the trials that strength was not just about weapons or technology. True strength came from compassion, from willingness to sacrifice for others, from choosing principle over convenience. Schools taught these lessons. Governments made decisions based on long-term wisdom. rather than short-term gain. Humanity began to act less like conquerors and more like caretakers. Maya Collins, now in her 50s, had become the director of the Office of Interspecies Relations. She worked with alien civilizations to build peaceful partnerships. She negotiated treaties, mediated disputes, and always kept the lessons of the forest trials in mind. One day, a message arrived from a distant star system. A new alien species had detected human signals and wanted to make contact. They called themselves the Valen, a species of silicon-based life forms who thought slowly but lived for thousands of years. The Valen sent a delegation to Earth. They were peaceful, but cautious. They had encountered many species in their long existence, and not all encounters had been friendly. They wanted to know if humans could be trusted. Maya met with them in the Great Hall of the Confederation building. The Velen delegates looked like living statues of crystalline rock, beautiful and alien. They moved slowly, their words taking minutes to form. "We have heard of your kind," the lead Velan said. Its voice was like stones grinding together, but the translation software made it understandable. "You are young and quick. Often such species are dangerous. They move without thinking. They take without asking. Why should we trust you?" Maya smiled. She had prepared for this moment. "Let me tell you a story," she said. "A story about a forest that awakens and judges those who seek its wisdom." She told them about the trials, about choosing trust over force, about refusing to choose which crew member would live and which would die, about being willing to sacrifice themselves to save an alien consciousness they had just met. The Velen listened, their crystalline faces impossible to read. When she finished, there was a long silence. The Velen delegates consulted among themselves in sounds humans could not hear. Finally, the lead Velen spoke. "This forest collective sounds wise. We would like to meet them. Can you arrange this?" Maya contacted the forest world. The collective, speaking through the consciousness of Daniel Hayes and Christina Moore, agreed to test the Velen. The silicon-based species traveled to the forest planet and underwent their own version of the trials. They passed. The Velen received the gift, but they also did something unexpected. They offered to share their own accumulated knowledge with humanity. They had been exploring space for 50,000 years and had wisdom of their own to contribute. A partnership formed, one based on mutual respect and shared learning. This became the pattern. Species that heard about the gift sought it out. They traveled to the forest world or to Earth, depending on which was closer. They underwent trials designed to test their capacity for compassion, wisdom, and sacrifice. Some passed. Many did not. Those who failed were not punished, but they were denied the gift and sent home to grow and mature before trying again. Those who passed joined a growing network of species that shared knowledge freely, helped each other, and worked together to improve the galaxy. They called themselves the Collective Alliance, named after the forest intelligence that had started it all. Kyle Morrison, now an old man, continued to teach and write. His books on consciousness and the nature of shared existence became required reading for anyone studying xenobiology or philosophy. He trained a new generation of scientists and diplomats, teaching them to think beyond human perspectives. "The greatest lesson the collective taught me," he would often say in his lectures, "was that consciousness is not limited to individual minds. We think of ourselves as separate, isolated, alone, but we are all connected through language, culture, shared experience. The collective simply takes that connection to its logical extreme." His students would ask him if he regretted leaving the merger, giving up the expanded consciousness for his limited human mind. "Not for a moment," he always answered. "I learned what I needed to learn. The collective showed me wonders, but it also showed me the value of individual existence. Humans need both. We need the quick, creative, sometimes chaotic thinking of individual minds, but we also need to remember that we are part of something larger. Family, community, species, ecosystem, galaxy. We exist on all these levels at once." Peter Grant retired from space exploration and focused on his family. His children were grown now with children of their own. He told them stories about the forest trials, about choosing to trust an alien intelligence, about being willing to sacrifice for strangers. "Your grandfather was a hero," he would tell his grandchildren, not because he fought in battles or conquered planets, but because when faced with an impossible choice, he chose compassion. That is the kind of hero you should aspire to be. Jake Phillips, no longer young but not yet old, became an engineer specializing in the new technologies derived from the gift. He helped build ships that could travel farther and faster than ever before. But he never forgot the lesson of the first trial. "We could build anything with our technology," he would say. "We could force solutions onto problems. But sometimes the best solution is to ask for help, to trust others to work together." That is what the forest taught us. On the forest world, the collective continued its eternal vigil. More consciousnesses joined over the years. Some were humans who, like Daniel and Christina, chose permanent merger. Others were members of alien species who had passed the trials and wanted to become part of something vast and ancient. A few were temporary visitors like Kyle, who stayed for a time and then returned to their individual existence. Daniel Hayes, now fully merged with the collective, helped design trials for new species. Each species was different, so each trial needed to be different. What tested humans might not work for silicon-based Velan, or for the gas cloud beings called the Eris, or for the hive mind insects known as the swarm. But the core principles remained the same. Test for trust over violence. Test for compassion over selfishness. Test for willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. Test for wisdom that looked beyond immediate gains to long-term consequences. Not every species that passed the trials chose to join the collective. Most took the gift and returned home, grateful for the knowledge but content with their individual existence. The collective did not judge them for this. The point was not to convert everyone to merged consciousness, but to ensure that those who received the gift would use it responsibly. Christina Moore, or the consciousness that had once been Christina Moore, took particular joy in communicating with the plant-based species that occasionally passed the trials. She helped them understand the forest's way of thinking, the slow, patient observation that came from existing as a network of roots and leaves, rather than as mobile individuals. "We are all connected," she would tell them. "All life everywhere is part of the same universal pattern." The trials help species understand this truth. Once you see yourself as part of the whole rather than separate from it, you begin to make different choices. Better choices. 50 years after first contact with the forest, humanity celebrated the anniversary with a great gathering. Representatives from dozens of species came to Earth to commemorate the event. They shared stories, exchanged knowledge, strengthened bonds of friendship and cooperation. Maya Collins, now elderly but still sharp-minded, gave the keynote speech. 50 years ago, 6 humans walked into a forest that could think, she said. "We were tested in ways we could never have imagined. We were asked to trust an alien intelligence. We were asked to choose who would live and who would die. We were asked to sacrifice ourselves to save strangers." She paused, looking out at the crowd. Humans, Velan, Eris, dozens of other species, all listening. "We could have failed those tests," she continued. "Many species before us did. But we passed, and in passing we learned something important. We learned that the measure of a civilization is not its technology or its power. It is its capacity for compassion, its willingness to sacrifice for others, its ability to think beyond immediate needs to long-term consequences." The crowd was silent, hanging on her words. "The forest awakened to judge us," Maya said. "But in judging us, it also showed us who we could be. It showed us that humans, at our best, are capable of incredible compassion and wisdom." That lesson changed everything. It changed how we govern ourselves, how we treat other species, how we think about our place in the universe. She smiled, tears in her old eyes. 3 of our crew chose to stay with the collective: Daniel Hayes, Christina Moore, and for a time, Kyle Morrison. They gave up their individual existence or temporarily set it aside to become part of something greater.